I'm here with GP, and today I'm going to cover how to prime the oil system on a 4.0 liter engine. The engine in GP is a 1995. The head is a 1991 7120. Alright, to prime this 4.0 engine oil system, I'm changing out the oil now. I want a nice, clean, trustworthy oil in this. So that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, the oil's not in that bad a shape. We got a 5-quart capacity in here, so that's good. It wasn't low. We'll put some new oil in this before we prime it. Alright, I got my drain plug back in. So this is the lifter valley under the head right here. The lifters sit vertically in here on top of the camshaft. It's also an oil gallery, so you'll hear me mix up the terms every once in a while. Lifter valley and oil gallery. Maybe call this the galley. So this oil is just traveling through the head here back into the crankcase. There's no pressurized oil up here in the head. The oil comes up through the push rods and lubricates everything up here by spray, and then gravity takes it back into the lifter valley, oil pressure gallery. So that oil is not in that bad a shape. This engine's very durable and reliable. It'll take a lot of use and abuse before it gives up. AMC designed this engine, the 4.0, and Chrysler wanted to get into the SUV market, so they bought out AMC and Jeep. So this engine was in production in the Jeep from 1987 when Chrysler bought out AMC Jeep all the way up till 2006. And then the Energy Independence and Securities Act of 2007, that essentially killed this engine. That was all about fuel economy and stuff. But the 4.0 is a very reliable and forgiving engine. That's why we're still working on them today. Today being 2026. Okay, once oil is in the crankcase, in the oil pan, there's no way for it to get into the oil passage galleries unless this is spinning and the oil pump's creating pressure. So you can fill up your oil and deal with your filter later. That's what I like to do. Put the oil in there, use my old container to bring the oil to the recycle center, and then deal with the filter later. Prevent making a huge mess. Pretty cold out here tonight. Look how thick this oil is. All right, a quick inspection of our oil. There's no chunks in here. No metal particles. We weren't low on oil. That's a good sign. So I went to the auto parts store and I asked the gentleman behind the counter to look up a part number for a Jeep 4.0 oil filter. He asked me what brand I'd like. I said, how about a Fram? He had no idea what I was talking about. And sure enough, Fram Filters is bankrupt right now. Their parent company is First Brands Group. And last year, 2025, they filed for bankruptcy. So the brand they recommend is Wix. So Wix, that's a good United States oil filter manufacturer. And an interesting thing about Wix is that Jack Wix and Paul Crenshaw, they're from North Carolina, they developed this feature where you twist the filter on. They call it the wrist twist or something like that. But this is how you used to have to change your filter out before those two guys patented this design. Interestingly enough, Fram's on this one. This one's out of my 65 Dodge Power Wagon. But that's the latest and greatest. 51085 Wix. What do you think about all this oil filter talk? Okay, this is my setup to catch the oil during the oil filter change. Anything that doesn't go in this pan will end up on this. The only oil that's going to come out is what's in this filter. So you can still make a mess. Okay, there's a lot of different tools on the market to get the oil filter off. This one always works for me. I literally have an entire drawer full of different tools. Some engines, it's not easy to get in there. I don't think I've ever used this one. I had a Marine buddy of mine that used to just stick a screwdriver through it. He thought he was really clever doing it that way. But anyway, on this engine, you're going to bring your tool in like this. And left loose if you're looking at it from the rear. Okay, that's the oil filter right there. We're going to access that from the top. Get our tool on there. Remove it through the engine bay top side and let the oil drip down into our pan. Hopefully I got that pan lined up good. A Wix. Okay, see that? Without the oil pump turning and creating pressure, nothing's going to leak out of that filter mount. Okay, see that? That's all the oil that's in the filter. Get rid of your 5 quarts and deal with the filter later. Okay, when you're putting your new filter on, just put a little bit of oil around here, and then make sure that this rubber gasket from the old one is not stuck on the oil filter mount. Once this bottoms out, tighten it 3/4 of a turn. So get a visual reference on that and then count quarters. 1, 2, 3. All right, oil pressure is created by the oil pump. And the oil pump is turned by the distributor. The distributor has a little gear on it. The camshaft turns that gear, rotates the distributor, and then the distributor drives the oil pump. So we're going to take the distributor out. I have the engine set at number 1 top dead center. We already have most of the wires removed during the head change. The wires came off the spark plugs and they're not even installed yet. But we'll begin by taking the rotor cap off. The rotor cap just has 2 1/4 turn fasteners on it. It's a number 7 metric, or you could put a Phillips head. And these aren't 1/4 turn, these are screwed in. Okay, I bought a new tool online. This tool's made to help you with the electrical connectors. So let's see how this thing works. Whoa. I'm impressed. Okay, with the engine set at the number 1 cylinder at top dead center, when we pull this distributor cap, the rotor should be pointing to the number 1 cylinder wire. So number 1, looks like it's this one. And that looks correct. Okay, if your leads are stuck, just get a little tool and go around there and loosen that rubber. Don't destroy your wires trying to get them off. They get hot and they just get stuck to things, so you can get in there and just loosen it up. Take your time. Look at that coil lead. See how corroded that is? I'm sure that was affecting the performance of this in some way. Okay, to get the distributor out, that's a 1/2 inch bolt right here. And it's got to come all the way out. There's a specialty tool to get this, but on this engine it's a Chrysler. You just set that at a little mark and you're timed. Okay, when this distributor comes out, that rotor is going to turn. That's because that gear we talked about that meshes with the camshaft is disengaging. See that? When you put it in, you want to have that positioned, and then it'll rotate back. There's the gear I'm talking about. And then there's an opportunity to drop things into that hole right there. Don't do that. All right, there's the gear on the camshaft. See that? And there's our oil pressure switch right here. Well, we have the distributor out. We're going to remove the oil pressure switch and install a gauge so we can monitor our pressure. This is the easiest time to do that with this distributor out of the way. All right, I get a chance to show off my new tool again. Let's see how it works here. Whoa, awesome. That's well worth it, man. Well, we're talking about tools. You need a special socket to get that oil pressure sending unit off. And that's just actually a switch on this application. It's either ground or it's open. Alright, so this oil pressure switch, with no pressure, that switch is closed, brings the light on. Once the oil pump starts producing pressure, that switch opens and the light goes out. Okay, we're priming this for a head change, and that, based on your maintenance philosophy, may or may not be required to put a gauge on here or even prime it. But this thing's been sitting a while. Life happened while I was repairing this. So we'll thread this gauge into that opening where our pressure switch sat. While I was looking for this, I found yet another oil filter tool. This application won't work on the size of our Wix for the 4.0, but there's another one. Alright, our gauge is installed for us to monitor our oil pressure. Alright, let's look at this tool real quick. So look at on this Wix XP, it's got these flats on it. You would have to buy the right application tool. Might not be a bad idea. Another tool for me to go try to acquire. Interesting. CA Incorporated.